Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lindsay Glasser. I'm going to be your presenter tonight. I'm joined tonight with Kelly Schaefer, my partner in crime here, for another webinar in our monthly series. And tonight we're going to be talking about literacy, language arts, and how you can blend them and integrate them with birds. So, welcome. For those of you who may be new to this webinar, or to our webinar series, I should say, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll continue our journey of learning for future series. To get you acquainted, we're using the platform Zoom. This is a nice, fun platform. We're going to actually have a quiz tonight, which we'll test that out for some of you guys. But just so you know, we will be having this being interactive, meaning we'll use the chat window. The chat window you'll find somewhere hovered around in the top left corner or bottom left or right corner, something like that. But when you do find the chat window, what I recommend is exiting out of full screen. When you do that, it will dock the chat window on your right hand side. When doing so as well, because we're going to have this be an interactive webinar, instead of having a chat be selected as send to all panelists, please change that as send to everyone. That just allows any comments, questions, concerns you may have. There's likely somebody else who may have them, or if you have recommendations or suggestions, we do want to share that with the entire community here. So, let's actually test that out real quick. For those of you, especially in case we have some new people, just let us know who you are, where you're coming from, and we are good to see what's happening. Tracy, welcome. Tina, welcome. Virginia, West Virginia, St. Louis area. Ellen, nice to see you as always. Jill, nice to see you as always. Linda, Illinois area. Kelly from another St. Louis area, cool. Phoebe in Connecticut, Megan in New Hampshire, Maryland, Connecticut, North Carolina. Welcome, 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 everyone. Terry, nice to see you again. Welcome. It's nice to see some familiar names as well as some new names I might not be familiar with. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the lab, we are part of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. We are a membership-driven institution that is a nonprofit, and our mission is to interpret and conserve the Earth's biological diversity through research, education, and citizen science focused on birds. We are based in Ithaca, New York. However, we are the BirdSleuth K through 12 is both. Well, Kelly and I work at the national level, but we also have international programs. Though I wish it looked like this beautiful picture, it is now dreary and snowy outside with ice quickly forming.
It's crisp.
Crisp is an understatement, Kelly. It's cold and very cold. But that's not going to stop us. We'll hopefully get home safe tonight. I have black ice lining my house. Specifically, Kelly and I are with the BirdSleuth K through 12 program, and our mission is to create innovative resources that build science skills. And this is to inspire young people to connect to local habitats, explore biodiversity, and engage in citizen science projects. Now, in this webinar tonight, like we talked about, we are going to focus on integrating literacy and science and how you can combine those two topics all while studying birds. So I'll first do a brief overview of the English Language Arts Common Core State Standards. We'll discuss how science meets those English Language Arts standards. I'll spend most of the webinar going over 4 of our BirdSleuth books and activities we have available. And we'll touch a few on the specific English language arts activities, but also have some fun interactive ones for us. And then brainstorm some additional outdoor learning opportunities that can meet ELA. So moving forward, the English Language Arts Standards. These are part of the Common Core State Standards. Moving forward, I'll probably just call them the ELA Standards. The Common Core State Standards, it's one of those topics where I might say this to educators, and some are open and willing to meet them, others cringe. We're not here to try and provide any bias, but we do recognize that 40+ states around the country do have to meet these standards. So how can we collaboratively work together to try and address those? When we look at these standards, they are student performance expectations. They are not a curriculum. That said, you may actually have at your district or school a specific curriculum you have to use to address some of the standards. What we are going to provide you with tonight are activities that can supplement curricula that you are already using. The standards recognize both content and skills are important. They're designed to coherently build up from kindergarten all through 12th grade, and they're really focused on preparing students for college, careers, and citizenship. Now, when we think of ELA and specifically science, we're really focusing right now for this webinar on the elementary age group. And this is just an excerpt from the Common Core State Standards website, and I want to focus on what's in orange. Students need the ability to gather, comprehend, evaluate, synthesize, and report on information and ideas, to conduct original research in order to answer questions or solve problems. Now, this statement completely removed out of context. When I read this, I thought, well, that's the science process right there. That statement is talking about science. And this is where the ELA standards are really supporting much of what we are trying to accomplish in science, and reaching these topics like literacy, where students are able to look at a problem, understand the factors, and develop their own opportunities or solutions for those problems. And again, this is where the science aspect is coming into play. So we're really looking at this elementary age group, an opportunity to study how kids can develop their literacy skills while meeting these ELA standards and addressing science contents. Now, we are the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and we could probably spend the rest of the 53 minutes just staring at this gorgeous bird poster and talking about each and every one of these birds. That said, I'm not allowed to do that. Kelly will probably slap me. So, actually, she'll probably join in on this. You're a bird nerd, Kelly. I am. But this begs the question of looking at this photo, why are birds a topic that we should use to address both the ELA standards as well as science? And so I want to ask you guys in the chat window, for those of you who are already using birds as a teaching tool, or for those who may not have but were interested in this webinar, why are you interested in using birds to teach science and or English language arts? Share your thoughts in the chat window. Again, I'll repeat that. Why are you interested in currently using birds or potentially using birds in your education setting? They grab kids' attentions. They're super accessible to all areas, urban, suburban, rural. We see them all around us. Diversity across species. And there's many literature examples to find them. They're so fun, gorgeous. They fit into a lot of categories such as fashion, history, everywhere. Really like that comment. It's something attainable for kids to see, watch, take research from. They can also use it in art. As we approach winter, we want to feed the birds and observe them. Behavior is observable, absolutely, Terry. Yeah, I mean, you guys are really hitting all the points. Vina, I love that. They're free. Bird watching is free and accessible, which is just marvelous. We want to really hit on those main points, that the accessibility, several of you pointed that out. Birds are everywhere, and they're free for us to watch and observe. And as many of you pointed out, we can address a lot of different topics or categories with birds. And it's not just in the science aspect of, you know, talking about adaptation or habitat, but talking about social studies, bringing in the English language arts, bringing in mathematics. We can address a lot of core content that needs to be discussed at the elementary age group, and use birds as the avenue to really paint the picture for kids. And so what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to demonstrate or show you guys our books and activities page, and we're going to talk about 4 books specifically tonight. Now, real quick, we're just going to go through the live share, and Kelly, make sure, yeah, you can. Just so everybody can navigate our website, you know exactly where to get these. Here's our website, birdsleuth.org. Kelly will be sharing a lot of these links in the chat window. Our website will also be listed at the end of this. For those of you who aren't familiar with our webinars, this is recorded, and we'll list the links of this recording in the YouTube description when we upload the recording, just so you guys are aware. Now, to access our books and resources, I'm just going to hover over these educational resources. The third one down, kids book activities. This is where you're going to find all of the books that we're going to discuss tonight. Now, the 4 top books, these are all books coming from the Cornell Lab Publishing Group. We're going to talk about 3 of those 4 books. We're also going to talk about another wonderful book on Meadowview Street and how that can help support habitat and investigations. We have a total of, I want to say 10 books on here because it's just second page. Yes, we have a total of 10 books, and this spring we'll likely be adding this spring or summer we'll likely be adding 2 to 3 more books as well. Just so you guys are aware, the title's in green. You'll see the grade level. Each book has a different grade level associated with it, and they'll also address key concepts too. So let's check out some of our books, shall we? The first book I want to talk about is On Bird Hill. And when you click on the website for any of these books, this is generally what will show up. You're going to have your cover right at the top, the title, and it'll always have especially for the publishing groups, the download guide button. You just click on that, you'll download the full PDF. They're usually around 8 pages long. It's all free. And within that PDF, what we do is we have aligned specifically all the Cornell Lab Publishing Group books, those first 4 books I pointed out at the top, they're all aligned with 4 standards. And those 4 standards are the Next Generation Science Standards, the English Language Arts Common Core State Standards, the Mathematics Common Core State Standards, and the National Core Art Standards. Now, what this will look like on the guide for all those CLPG guides, we have CLPG is Cornell Lab Publishing Group. They'll always have the specific standards listed for each one, and they'll also give you the abbreviations at the top. So for every activity we have next to it'll have an acronym, and that acronym will represent if it's science, ELA, math, or art standards that are being met for that activity. So let's talk about On Bird Hill. This is a book that's designed for the pre-K through 2nd age group. It's written by Jane Yolen, who's a great author for us, and it's really focusing on the topics around nesting birds. Just some language from the book. And on that twig I saw a nest, and in that nest a bird at rest. Beneath that bird there was an egg, a little chick, all beak, wing, leg. And so you can see this is really targeted towards the younger audience here. And we want to focus on this younger audience to discover some of the interesting nesting opportunities. Now I talk about there's going to be 8 pages worth of activities, and that will be between, I want to say, about 7 to 8 activities per guide. And one of the activities is to have students go through a nesting fact or fiction. And some of you have seen our fact or fictions before. These are some modified statements designed specifically for that pre-K through 2nd age group. I really like to set this game up when I do these with the little ones, that I have a nice big space, either an empty classroom, a gymnasium, or ideally an outdoor space, where I have a true or fact side and a false or fiction side. And all the kids will start off in the middle. And I'll read the statement. And they have to go to one side or the other. Once they choose a side, they stay there. From there, they can then, I'll have the kids justify the reasoning of why they went to the fact or the fiction side. And both sides share their reasoning, and based off of them having that discussion and sharing that reasoning, they can then make the decision if they want to change which side they're on. Again, we're talking about bringing in the ELA standards here. So having that discourse is a great opportunity for them to present evidence. Oftentimes the evidence is based off of their own observations or what they've been told or done their own research on. And then based off that evidence, they can then reevaluate their decisions and decide if they do want to stick with their fact or fiction side or change which side they're on. So we're going to test your knowledge on this fact or fiction. Again, I said this is an interactive webinar. So get your typing fingers ready, head to the chat window, and I'm going to test you on the first statement. All birds build nests. Is that fact or fiction? All birds build nests. Oh, you guys really had your typing fingers ready. Okay. Okay, so most people are saying fiction. Phoebe posed the question, depends what you define as a nest. So that might be something where once kids choose side, depending on the group, there might be some very inquisitive youngsters that I work with, in which case I'll leave the middle as an I don't know. And that's where they can pose those questions too, like does it depend on a nest itself? This statement is in fact fiction. Well done. Would anybody like to provide evidence? Terry, you knew what I was going to say before I even said it. Yes, a cowbird. And Phoebe, that's really nice. Sharing examples of your third graders actually posing that question. So that's really good to know. I'm curious, would you share with us how you handled that situation? And while Phoebe's typing in the chat window of how she handled that, I just want to address a brown-headed cowbird. This is a bird that we have in the United States. They are an amazingly interesting bird in the fact that they don't build nests, but will in fact lay their eggs in other birds' nests, which is very cool. So Phoebe's response is just, again, she asked the question, it depends on what you mean by a nest. This was asked by a third grader. You talked about it around the table and kids told what they knew about hawks that just lay eggs on a cliff. Very interesting. Yeah, some birds, such as a killdeer, they create scrapes. And these are nests that are basically very simple indentations in the ground. And looking at that, one of the activities, in fact, that I'll talk about in just a moment is a build a nest challenge. And I've had some educators, these were educators who are smart Alex, who I gave them 10 minutes in a challenge to build a nest. 2 seconds later, they come back and say, done. They made a little divot in the ground and that was their nest. And birds use that. And so do you count those as a nest or not? That's a really great question. It really depends on the people. We call those scrape nests. There is some effort that goes into them. But the brown-headed cowbirds are an example that truly do not build nests at all. As Kelly put in the chat window, they are obligate brood parasites. So they lay their eggs in other birds' nests, and they will do no parenting whatsoever. Okay, next statement. Some birds give birth to live babies rather than eggs. Fact or fiction? Okay, most people looks like are saying fiction. We have some hanging in the middle that are going to the I don't knows. Okay, this statement is in fact fiction. Yes, eggs are specifically looking at where birds do not give live birth, they give birth in eggs. And I just saw a comment come through here. Karen, If I'm talking to K2 students, though, I probably wouldn't talk about cowbirds. Principle of simplicity. Interesting. Yeah, the cowbird factoid is a fun one. One thing you could think about, though, many kids of the K2 age group would be familiar with, say, penguins. And when you're looking at penguins, Kelly just gave me a look. She was going to type that. She did type that in the chat window. You look at penguins, and the eggs are going to be on their feet. And that's a very common example that they can relate to. So that may be another alternative, Karen, that would be very appropriate for this age group. Some species anyways, thank you. What is it, the king penguin? Emperor penguins? Yeah. So, moving on to our next statement, eggs and chicks are not always safe in their nest. Fact or fiction? I see a lot of facts coming in, which is great. You guys are all correct on this. I've really appreciated the comments that Phoebe and Karen have contributed so far that are really relevant towards your specific group. So if you guys do have any of those that come up, please feel free to share them. Again, yes, this is true or fact. Eggs and chicks are not always safe in the nest. Any idea what threats may lie in the nest for the eggs and chicks? Snakes, predators, weather. Yeah, there's a lot of different topics that can happen. You're really using and thinking about the age appropriateness and the maturity of your students. One resource that I do really love are the bird cams. And these are a great opportunity for kids to watch eggs and chicks grow up in the bird cams. Obviously, there's an opportunity that something traumatic may happen. The cams are monitored, and if by chance something disturbing is happening, we do try and put up a warning sign before users see the camera, just to let them know what may be happening. But yeah, that's also another really great resource to check out if you want to show kids eggs and chicks that are live hatching, but also to have discussions about the predator-prey interactions and the risks that these birds do face at the nest. Next statement, most baby birds are fed seeds and berries by their parents. Fact or fiction? Okay, we got a top-notch audience here. This is fiction. What are baby birds fed? Protein, absolutely. They're getting some yummy grubs, some insects, any kind of high protein, or say they're a raptor, you know, they might be getting some squirrel or snake that night, you never know, fish. But the protein is key. A yummy mouse. Excellent. Number 5, birds can breathe inside their eggs before they hatch. Fact or fiction? Excellent. This is fact. This is one of our common statements that we've done before. The membrane is permeable. Absolutely, Phoebe. Yeah, birds can breathe inside their eggs. There needs to be some form of oxygen. For us to think about it, the easiest way is, I see many of you guys are women here tonight. Think of the placenta and the exchanges happening there. Obviously, with birds and eggs, there's no placenta happening, but the membrane around the egg is permeable and allowing oxygen exchange. So this is, in fact, a fact. Number 6, only the female or mother bird sits on the eggs. Fact or fiction? No, it's a fiction, absolutely. And this is a great example. It really depends on the bird species. For some species, it is true, in fact, female birds are the only birds that will sit on the eggs. For other species, it is a shared burden between the male and female. We talk about, in some species, yeah, Carla, exactly, the penguin, sometimes it is only the male having that burden. So there's another great example. I love the fact that you're bringing up the penguins from previous statements, Carla, because kids will absolutely do that too. Okay, number 7, most birds live in their nest year-round. Fact or fiction? Excellent. This is fiction. This is actually a very common misconception, especially from that pre-K through 2 age group, that the birds will use the nest similar as a home, when in fact the nest is just for raising of the young, and once they fledge, they're done. We could treat them like high schoolers, so to say, and say, okay, once they fledge, they're off to college. You don't want those kids to come back to your nest. But that's a little going extreme. I don't think the kindergartens will quite understand that analogy yet. And the last one, if you find a baby bird, you should try to feed it bread and milk. Fact or fiction? Fiction, absolutely. Okay. I like that, Carla, the empty nest. We're empty nesters. For those of us who have kids in college, those of us say, as I say, as a woman who has no kids at all. I was really that statement to come out of my mouth. Yes, fiction. If you find a baby bird, you should try to feed it bread and milk. Please do not do that. It's something where, you know, different bird species require different maintenance aspects. If you find a pigeon versus a sparrow versus a raptor, they're all going to have different needs. Please do not do that. If you find a baby bird, the first question is to figure out, what kind of bird is it? Is it a nestling, meaning a bird that's fresh out of the nest, or is it a fledgling, meaning a bird that's learning to fly? Kelly just shared a great comic from Bird and Moon. It's not only very funny, but it actually is very helpful. It will help you identify the difference between nestling and fledgling. If it's a nestling, yes, try and put it back in its nest. If not, if you can't find the nest, call an animal rehabilitator and they will know what to do. If it's a fledgling, leave it alone. Do not touch it unless it is absolutely in danger, such as clearly injured or as at risk of, say, being eaten by a cat or something like that. Otherwise, leave it be. So, well done. I say you all get an A on these nesting birds, fact or fiction. And again, I really like to do this in an energetic way where the kids are not only running back and forth between sides, but then being respectful and having the opportunity to try and have a discussion of yes or no, and they're justifying the reasons. The other alternative I've seen done with this, when some teachers just know that they can't let their kids run from one side to the other, it would just cause too much mayhem, is to pitch these statements and have kids actually write out their responses and write out their justification, providing real life examples of why they think it is fact or fiction. So the other thing I mentioned is the building a nest activity. Vaguely, we were talking about the difference of, well, what is considered a nest? One of the activities here, you'll see it's activity 6 for this On Bird Hill book, is all about a build a nest challenge. Now, I talked about, you'll have the title. Right here, you'll see that this activity is focused on meeting the art standards as well as science standards. And it goes through the process of asking kids, what does a nest look like? What is a nest made from? And this is specifically focusing on reflecting on the book itself. So revisiting the book and recalling that information. Again, meeting, occasionally meeting some of those English language art standards as well. But then it's challenging kids with this design challenge of building their own nest. I really find a great opportunity with this activity to bring in that art component, bringing in the natural materials, especially for the younger age group. Instead of maybe, if you can, have them go outside and collect the materials themselves, that's great, or you yourself can collect materials and bring it inside for the kids to give them that opportunity too. Now, one final activity I would like to highlight, because the people who developed this, aka our boss Jen, is very proud of this activity, is activity 8, exploration. And it's just having kids get the opportunity to get messy. How many times do kids just want to crack eggs, want to get their hands dirty, but don't have that time to do so? This is an activity that's solely around actually cracking regular eggs and identifying the different parts. Again, these are unfertilized eggs. They're just eggs you can find in your regular store, but going through that process of cracking them, examining them, looking closer at an unfertilized egg. Okay, so that first book was on Bird Hill. Next book we want to talk about is A Perfect Day for an Albatross. Now this book is going to be focused more towards the 1st through 3rd grade, and I just want to read this quick little snippet. Each time I returned, I was excited to join the dancing and practice my whistles, horns, and wheezing screams. One year as I walked near a male albatross named Kumukahi, he bowed deeply, inviting me to dance. He whinnied and shook his head, then watched as I faced him and rattled my beak. We bobbed up and down, stood up high on the tips of our toes, dipped our heads, and sparred with our beaks. And this goes on to really describe the mating dance that albatrosses have. So one of the topics addressed here is mating, courtship, so to say. We're looking at the actual dancing that albatrosses do. Do you guys know the albatrosses? Albatrosses? I like albatrice better. Did you guys know that albatri dance? Again, lazy and albatrosses are one of our bird cams that we have at the Lab of Ornithology, and it's really fascinating to watch them go through this courtship display they have. So we're talking about behaviors, coordinated movements that the birds have, discussing why birds move and what those behaviors mean. So this activity from the Albatross book is Dance Like a Tross. Again, it's meeting the science, art, and English language art standards that the activity is designed for. But it's breaking down and having kids go through these dancing movements and describe them and discuss them. So just to give you a little context and proof that our albatri, I should say that because it's not albatri, actually dance. And we're going to see how this volume works out. So let's break the moves down step by step. Finding the partner's beat. It's a good thing we're not on video because Kelly and I are dancing right now. The male usually leads and keeps the tempo for the dance. For those who don't see, that little gray blob is a chick. Now here comes the complicated bit. We're gonna go through some whining, some head flicks, rapid bill clapper, air snaps, and then they call this the bill under the wing. We like to call it the smelling the armpit. We really think the kids will love, just get under that, smell the armpit a little bit. Check out, does the boy smell? Do I need to check he's wearing his deodorant or not? For those second graders, I know, for those second graders, you really gotta watch that. But it's a really great opportunity to start getting those kids engaged with that, the arts aspect, and role playing, and having them start to mimic some of these behaviors, or having them develop their own dance moves. And I just think it's phenomenal watching these birds with these coordinated movements. all this video you're seeing is from our bird cam. You can watch this formal video here. It is on our website. You can also just watch the bird cam itself. This takes place, I want to say, during January through March. There it is. Don't listen to me when I say I know what time it goes through. Kelly will share the specific link and dates in the chat window. But I really do love this clip. I find it super cute. So that's our Albatross book again. That was for roughly the 1 through 3rd age range. I'm going to talk about On Duck Pond. This is also a Cornell Lab publishing book. These past 3 ones are Cornell Lab publishing book. On Duck Pond is really focusing on bird sound, focusing on waterfowl. The context of this is a boy is visiting on Duck Pond, and it's very quiet and serene, peaceful, silent. And all of a sudden, these waterfowl just start coming in and disturb the silence of Duck Pond. And it's him observing what happens before the ducks arrive, while the ducks arrive, and then how things settle after the ducks have arrived. Now, one activity we have in this, there's a really great storyboard activity where the kids actually think about seasonality and weather in Duck Pond. And so they actually create a storyboard for 4 seasons and write out, describe what season they currently think Duck Pond is on, and then write out and describe what Duck Pond would look like during the 3 other seasons, what animals they're likely to see, and how it may alter the habitat. So again, bringing in those components. I believe Duck Pond is up to 4th grade, I want to say. Now, that's a really great ELA connection going on. Another one is having kids look at bird ID. And Kelly and I were going through this, and we're like, okay, we want to make this webinar interactive, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to test some of your bird identification. You blew me away with your nesting knowledge. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to have a little quiz. Fortunately, this quiz is anonymous, and you don't need to answer in the chat window. Just ignore. Leave alone in the chat window. It gets harder than this one. We started off easy anyways. Let me start this quiz while I'm talking. Not that one. This one. Okay, it's called a poll. It should pop up immediately on your screen, and you can move that to the side while you're looking at images. I'm going to give you a few seconds to answer this first one, and then I'm going to change the next slide. So, what you're looking at, the top image is who's my mate. That is a duck. You don't have to identify the name. It's not focusing on names. But instead, what we're focusing on is looking at the shape, the silhouette of the bird, and seeing if you can find its mate or its partner. So I'm going to move on to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. There we go. Give you about 10 seconds here. Again, looking at the main image at the top and then seeing if you can find its partner in one of the 3 images. And moving on to the next slide. Three, two, one. Check the chat window. You can't see the slide. Uh-oh. Can anybody else not see the slide? Yeah, just move your poll to the side if you can't see it. Oh, you're good. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. And woo, I did not want to pop that up. Okay, one more. This should be the last one, I believe. Okay, when you are done, click enter your results. Entering, entering, entering. Okay, I'm seeing 17 to 28 people, 18 to 28. Some of them were very tough, yeah. And I'll talk about those. Okay, it looks like most people should have submitted their polling by now. You do have to submit an answer for the polling to be submitted. It's okay if you say, I don't know. I'm looking at the live results right now, and many people are saying, I don't know, which is perfectly fine. Okay, I'm going to end the polling. 5, 4, 3. Okay, we're done. Okay, let's share the results. Now, you guys should have had the polling results just pop up on your page. What I'm going to take us back to the very first one. Now, this activity, given that we want to have an interactive webinar, we recognize you're adults, you want to have a little fun. I was talking to Kelly today while I was designing this. I'm like, people are either going to love this quiz or hate this quiz because it is very tough. Bird ID lovers can be like, yes, test my waterfowl ID. Me personally, I would hate this quiz because I don't know my waterfowl ID very well. But that's not the point. This activity within the guide itself is designed where we have 5 males and 5 females. We recommend you print off 5 of those pictures and lay them out all on the table for kids to see all of the males on one side and the females on the other side. We don't focus on names at all with this with this activity. Instead, we're focusing on looking at the shape of the birds and seeing if you can match up that way. And the thing about on Duck Pond, it also has some bird ID information in the back of the book as well. So looking at this just for our curiosity, who's my mate? This is a mallard duck, in case anybody didn't know. And looking at its mate is lovely A over here, which is what most people said. This is a female mallard. They both have this nice swoop going on. And we can look and compare some of the differences. Out of the way. This is actually a female wood duck here. We're seeing a nice tuft of the head, which is not actually present at all in the mallard. And then this is a female widgeon. Yes, okay. Kelly's braiding me. And you see it has less of a swoop happening here. These beaks really kind of continue to make a nice curvature, whereas the widgeon does not. Okay, moving on to the next one. Our polls are showing that most people were really split by this bird, but majority are saying it is A, that is who's my mate. Now, one of the topics that's discussed in the guide is sexual dimorphism, where the males are and the females look different. Dimorphism, two appearances basically. And males tend to be far more colorful than females. I tricked you. I put a male down at the bottom. I'm sorry. This is a male green-winged teal, number A. And this is in fact not the mate of this male wood duck. Wow, that's a gorgeous reflection in that picture. His mate is in fact C, the female wood duck. And it does look a little tricky here too, because this widgeon kind of has a little tuft going on back here, but nothing compared to the nice tuft and rounded tuft of both the female and the male wood duck. In fact, this male green-winged teal here, his mate is right here. This green-winged teal is a female. And you can tell by that little green tuft. But we'll see. Oh, they're not the next ones. They'll be the ones after. Fun happening. Who's my mate? Number 3. It looks like people were tied between B and C. Again, yes, I could definitely see the confusion here because this is a very challenging one. We look at the nice mohawk happening here. This is a hooded merganser, a male hooded merganser. Most people agree, or everybody agreed, it's not A. Nobody voted for A. We're missing that mohawk and this female mallard here. But we're looking between a female hooded merganser and a female wood duck. This has a little more arch happening. But yes, we're looking specifically at the beak. That would be a very nice clue. Look how skinny this beak is with a hood and merganser compared to our wood duck. Okay, next one. Here is our green-winged teal. Looking at these green-winged teal, also again, very difficult. The patch we want to look at here, there's a nice patch of green here as well as green here. We've already talked about the green-winged teals. The final one is our American widgeon. And these guys are cool. They have a nice funky shape to their head. What I like to look at them is the nice little dark tip they both have on the tip of their beaks. So, again, this is not actually how the activity is designed or set up, but this is just kind of how we had fun with our online version with adults, I guess I can say. Anything to add, Callie?
Nope, I just stopped sharing.
Oh, thank you. Where's my mouse? There we go. So that's just one activity of On Duck Pond. Again, this is focusing on, there's also some sound activities there. I talked about the storyboard of looking through 3 different seasons. There's a male-female comparison because On Duck Pond does actually have some bird ID in the back of the book as well. I don't remember what the age group for Duck Pond is. K to 2. Yeah, so this activity, Who's My Mate, is definitely not the way I've set it up.
Well, it's the best we could set it up for
the online version, yes.
But yeah, it's more of a matching game, which is easier because you can just start to eliminate things.
Absolutely.
And the team discussion, like Phoebe was suggesting.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. The final book I would like to discuss is On Meadowview Street. And On Meadowview Street has a total of 6 activities, and it's solely focused around habitat and habitat improvements, making projects, and making a difference. Now, the context of On Meadowview Street, I don't remember the girl's name, but she and her family recently moved to a new house that is on Meadowview Street. And she asked, well, where's the meadow on Meadowview Street? And there is no meadow. But one day she goes through the process of realizing, oops, how do I move that up? I can't actually read the text because the thing's in the way. Thank you. She realizes and sees this beautiful flower, and the mower comes to a halt. Daddy, Caroline, her name's Caroline, pleaded, couldn't you mow around my flower? He said, thinking, well, that's less mowing for me. And so she starts by noticing just this one beautiful flower in her backyard. And this really leads to a flower that expands to 2 flowers, which then has some bees coming nearby and expands to a little more of a bush and shrubbery area, and eventually expands to this whole meadow and habitat improvement that takes place on Meadowview Street. And the text, now there really was a meadow on Meadowview Street and a home for everyone. The big goal she also talks about the home for everyone is the flower was the home for a bee. It's really important not to cut down the flower for that bee. And same thing with the trees and the birds and going through that whole process as well. So talking about a habitat, what is a habitat? A habitat is a place where an organism lives. It's its home. And it's made up of the 4 components: food, water, cover, and space. And so the educator's guide goes through this process of taking kids and having them create a habitat inventory of their outdoor space, writing a list or drawing images of the habitats, of what that could be in habitat. So on the right-hand side, what could be covered, such as buildings or trees or bushes or nests, or actually doing a formal list and looking specifically at your schoolyard habitat or backyard and having them make a formal list there. So the thing with On Meadowview Street, it then goes through the full process of encouraging kids to conduct their own habitat improvement project after they've done their habitat inventory. Maybe they'll notice that, you know, they have a lot of water nearby due to a pond. There is a lot of space that's available, but there's not much food or cover. And so then brainstorming, well, how can we develop more food or cover sources? And such like Caroline, start providing a better home for everyone, including the wildlife in your schoolyard or education space. Now we have about 10 minutes left. I do want to save some time for questions, but I just quickly went over the English language arts standards again. We're focusing on this idea of literacy and how you can use science to help build the literacy while developing and meeting your ELA standards. Again, for the Cornell Lab Publishing Group books, those 4 main books we talked about, the Albatross book, the On Duck Pond, the On Bird Hill, those are all aligned with the English language arts standards. But we also not just want to meet the standards, but build that literacy component, giving the kids the opportunity to address a problem or see a problem. And so these activities are going to start to build them towards those larger skills and giving them the content knowledge they need to build those. One simple activity moving forward that these are some off-the-wall type ideas that we can give you is building the art and writing skills. We've had this submitted to us by an educator a few years back now, where she had her students actually design their own birds. And so they all gave the birds their own name, they drew them, they described different habitats. I love the baseball bird. He lives at the Baseball Hall of Fame. He eats hot dogs, and the bird is in honor of Jackie Robinson. You can have other birds like Hannah's blue-winged owl, who eats rodents, seeds, and fruits, and resides in the temperate forest, and has a 6-foot wingspan. This looks almost like a lightning bird. It eats grass and bugs and fish. And that live in salt water. Oh, it's the mohawk bird, not the lightning bird. There's a lot of different opportunities to encourage kids to design their own birds, but then think about habitat and adaptation and how birds can go through that habitat process. One activity, the Design a Bird Challenge, I don't remember what that field guide is in. But there's a really great activity, Design a Bird Challenge, where you actually give kids the opportunity to design a problem, so to say, where they have to build a challenging habitat. But I think it's in one of the book guides. Oh, okay. Basically, you give kids groups, maybe 3 to 4. They have a blank piece of paper. They draw a big circle. Outside the circle, they have to draw a challenging habitat. Maybe the habitat has lightning every evening and flooding every morning. Maybe it has poisonous scorpion monkeys, but they also have to eat ants that are fire ants or something like that. It could be a really made up habitat. And once they've created and designed that challenging habitat, you then pass that habitat to a new group. That new group, again, look at literacy, they have to assess the problem and design their own bird that is adapted to that habitat. It's a really great group activity and a really awesome opportunity to look through that design and apply the skills they've learned. Nature journaling is a very simple activity that can be done around the ELA aspect of things, just taking kids outside, writing their observations of the natural world, and keeping a nature journal. One task I had to do, that I actually did this in college, but I've heard or seen other elementary educators will do this, is they actually challenge kids to watch a specific natural thing. For me, I chose a specific tree on campus at college. It could be a bush, a a piece of grass, a tree, whatever. But they monitor a specific natural item and will actually follow the progress of that item throughout the year. So that once a week they go out and write descriptions of what they're noticing and observing that's happening. And they can actually develop a full journal of what that item does as it progresses through the different seasons. Another really great journaling activity. And if you guys are doing any form of bird journaling, bird artwork, bird investigations, we do have our student publication magazine, BirdSleuth Investigator. Feel free to share any of that information with us. We're always looking for new items to publish each year. With that, we are basically finished. As I mentioned, 4 of our books we have right now, these 4 here, we have Educator Guides 4. We are about to release the Educator Guides for more books that are upcoming but aren't pictured here. They're going to be released, I believe, this spring or summer. No, it's not. Oh, it's 10/31. I thought it said 12/31. Ignore the coupon then. That's expired. With that, Kelly and I will take any questions. Apologize, I thought that said 12/31. Okay. Oh, about migration. We do have a book right now, Flute's Journey around migration. It's more for the upper elementary. I want to say it's for the 3rd through 6th. Kelly will share the link to that in the chat window. But Flute's Journey is a really great book around migration. Real quick, I'm going to put our contact information there, and of course it still has Jen's name on it, who's our supervisor. We are not Jen.
But she'd love to hear from you too.
She would. If you guys are interested or need to have a letter of completion, please email us, birdsleuth@cornell.edu. I will be happy to send you a letter of completion tomorrow or Thursday, depending on how busy I get. It's just a simple 1 contact hour, says what this webinar was about, and it's signed by Jen. So just email us if you'd like that. Again, this webinar is being recorded. We'll post the links into YouTube. That YouTube video will be made live on Friday. So Kelly and I will hang out for the next few minutes and answer any questions you guys may have. Thank you.